we will turn over the event to shortly, not yet, but she put together a wonderful program for you today. If anybody participated in Soak in the Suds of the Aegean, you would have had the opportunity to meet Andrea there. She helped us with our beer event and was one of the 2 participating distributors at the event. Today, you know, I think it's a very special part of the tour. Starting off on the islands, we wanted to start off on the islands because it's the summer, and unfortunately, many of us haven't had the opportunity to be in Greece and enjoy being on the islands. So we thought it was appropriate that we start the 4-part series on the islands and then move from the islands onto the mainland. And you know, I'm sure Andrea will briefly mention the next 3 parts of the tour. You know, of course, we haven't set dates for those events yet, but we certainly will be doing so in the near future. So, you know, please look forward to that. And I just want to mention this because I don't want to mix up one event with another event, but next week we have a fantastic event called Start Your Engines, which will deal with the restaurant industry and the difficulties that they're facing during the pandemic. I think it's an appropriate time to mention it with you know, this event because certainly the beverage industry plays a big part in the restaurant industry, and I'm sure that they're all experiencing difficulties. What's wonderful about our event that's coming up next week, we have 4 fantastic panelists. We have 2 panelists from the restaurant industry operators, and then we have 2 from the distribution supply side. So we have Mr. Tenevios and Mr. Livanos, and then we have Chef's Warehouse, a publicly traded company, and Victory Foods representing the supply side. So I really would encourage everybody to be a part of it. We need to support all the restaurants, all the people that the restaurant industry supports. There's so many people that are out of work, and I encourage everyone to please go to as many restaurants as you possibly can while they're still open. You know, it's the least that we can do to help them get through this. I apologize. I decided to do this from home today. My dogs are going a little nuts, so if you hear any noise behind us. On that note, I'd like to, before we get to Andrea, I want to introduce everybody to a wonderful person that I got to meet by going out to restaurants over the years. His name is Michael Madrigal. Michael was the ambassador of wines in northern Greece. And I got to meet him during his time as a som at one of Daniel Boulud's restaurants. I'm so sorry. Called Boulud Sud. And what was impressive about Michael was that Michael went out of his way. Okay, forgive me, 1 second.
I'm sorry that I admitted the rest of the participants a little bit later.
Okay, I'm back. I'm sorry. I have the culprit.
Welcome.
What is fantastic about Michael is that Michael was such a big proponent, and you know, he left an impression on me when I met him of how passionate he was about Greek wines, and he did his part to really take the Greek wine and elevate it in such a high caliber restaurant. And really, I can't, as a Greek who, you know, loves everything Greek, I can't thank him enough, you know, for doing that. So I'd like to invite Michael to come and say a few words and to thank him for participating in today's event, because you know, he really brings a lot to this event.
Thanks, Marcos. I'm happy to be here, to be honest with you. And you know, during my time as a sommelier, I was exposed to all wines from all over the world at all times. You know, wine representatives gave me carte blanche to taste everything they had, and I took them up on that. So I was able to taste the greatest wines ever made, from Burgundy, from Champagne, from Bordeaux, from the Barolo, from all those places. And wines from Greece always resonated with me at that high level. And not because, you know, I liked eating octopus or because I liked Greek music. Greek wine objectively is great. And I couldn't believe why it wasn't more widely accepted at fine dining restaurants throughout the country. So what I did was just really take my time to taste through everything of Greece and just sort of filter that into the restaurant and turn people on to these wines who would never on their own find them. And that was just part of my duty as a wine professional, as a sommelier, to get great wines in the hands of consumers. And there was nothing more than that. I mean, the quality, the product is great. And I was happy to be a conduit to get the wines from the growers into the hands of consumers. And that's it. All I did was shine a light. I did nothing else more than that, you know.
Well, we're very appreciative of the efforts that you did make. And I have to tell you, I'm sure a lot of us, you know, have a lot of wonderful memories of being on the islands and drinking, you know, wines from the islands. And there's something to be said about opening a bottle of wine, sharing it with friends, and it can really bring you back to a place, you know, which is something wonderful that we can all experience. So again, Michael, thank you so much. We look forward to you chiming in here as we move along on the event.
Mm-hmm.
I want to keep this kind of moving along as fast as we can, so because there's a lot that Andrea has prepared for us. So I'd like to invite Andrea now to begin her presentation of a tour of the Greek islands, summer lovers, red and white.
Thank you very much, Marcos. Thank you all for joining us today. As we are looking, as you see our first slide, we are starting in the Ionian Sea. So everybody knows of Greece and they always think of water. And if you're here in New York, like a bunch of us are, a lot of us can't go to the beach right now because we're having issues with sharks and all sorts of fun stuff, but we're going to virtually go there and try to get a taste for the sea, the terroir, and talk about grape varieties and islands that, well, I think some people are very familiar with, others might not be, and there's some really exciting, fun things that we're going to try, as well as talk about some producers that are really producing wines in a very modern way that have maybe not been on your radar before, because everyone of course knows Santorini, and we'll get to it, but there's some really exciting fun stuff. So we're going to start our tour on the Ionian side of Greece, and we are going to then continue to Crete and then up to Santorini. Our picture actually is fitting because that is it's Lake Melisani in Kefalonia. So that is actually during one of the earthquakes, the top actually fell in, so they figured out that there was an underwater network of rivers under there. So that's where Lake Melisani starts. Now, for everybody, this is a very detailed presentation, and I'm sure as I spoke with Alexandra and Marcos, you guys will be able to get this afterwards. So I've got it there for future in case you want to go back to review. And then, of course, if there's questions, we'll go through it. But I just wanted everybody to have some basic ideas and knowledge about Greece. Granted, everybody has been, but there are things that you might not know about the wine industry. So that's where we're going to start. With Greece, as we all know, we're part of the EU, and our borders are on the north with our land borders are there, and the rest of the country is surrounded by the sea. And we have the 10th largest coastline, in addition to the thousands of islands that we have, with only 230 about being inhabited. The climate is Mediterranean, And that plays a very interesting role in what we're going to be tasting today. So as we discuss each island, then I'll talk about the climate, because it's very unique to each area. And mountains are a very huge role in Greece. That's actually very valid as well as on the islands too. So we're going to talk about that as well. Then this is a very detailed slide, but just to kind of give you an idea of where we are in the world of Greece, Greece has over 300 indigenous grape varieties. So this means these are grape varieties that never left the country. There are, in the past decade, you've started to see some, I guess you would say planting. For example, Assyrtiko has gone to other parts of the world because a lot of the grape varieties in Greece are very drought resistant. And with the climate changing, there is a need for grape varieties that can withstand high heat, low rain. So you're starting to see more countries expanding into working with or testing out Greek grape varieties. So you might start to see some random Assyrtiko and other grapes popping up from Australia, even here in the US, as well as in South America at some point. So don't be surprised if you see it. But we're focused really on our Greek grapes because these are grapes, as I've said, up until recently have never left the country, and they're unique for that. And they have very interesting characteristics that even if they do travel outside of the country, they will never be the same. So in terms of our, the vineyards, they're pretty much a good even split between white and red grapes. And then our appellation system is based roughly on the French system. And that means you have your appellation of origins and your PGIs, which are your regionals. And then we'll go down from there, which we'll explain. So our wine laws, as I was saying, basically in the old days, everybody thought that France was the pinnacle for everything that should be about the wine laws and about how things were grown and what should be grown, so forth and so on. So that's where the laws actually started. We have in 2012 with the EU, they decided to try to have every country within the EU work with the same designations in order to minimize confusion. So we have, where in the old days you would see appellation of origin, contrôlé, for example, if you were looking at a French label, now you would see PDO or protected designation of origin. That is something which we'll be discussing more in detail as I go through each island and the grape varieties and what we're tasting. PGI is the level below that, and that is for wines that don't fit into that mold of PDO. And then we have wines that, if you look at table wine, don't think of that as something that is poor quality. It's actually a very interesting and very dynamic category that is where there's a hotbed of experimentation going on as well. So you would see table wine or varietal wine listed on many labels as well. And that just means that they don't conform to the appellations. And it's not a bad thing. It's just that they're doing certain things differently. So we do have in Greece 3 different types of climates. The Mediterranean, which we're really going to be delving into today, the Alpine and the temperate, but those are in the north. Those are for a different day as well. Now, I always love this particular map because a lot of times people just don't figure out or conceptualize where Greece is in the world in terms of winemaking. When you take this particular map, as you can see, we've got Greece from top to bottom on our right, and we're drawing a line essentially straight through the world. So we're on the same levels as Spain and Portugal for the most part. And so that actually has a lot of similarities in terms of, like, maybe not grapes, but the flavors, the styles of wines. And then when we bring it through to the United States, what I find, which is fantastic, is that Napa is on the same line as pretty much the central part of Greece. So when you think about where, and even in Napa, obviously, you know, and our thoughts and prayers do go out to everyone in California with wildfires right now. We share a lot of the same, with a lot of similarities in terms of climate. So it's just different interpretations of making wine. And then when you flip the world on itself, we are pretty much on the same parallel lines as some of the most impressive areas in Australia for making wine. So we're actually poised in a very, very good position in the world where you find Southern Italian, Sicilian, Spanish and Portuguese wines. We're all in that same neck of the woods. And then even, like I said, going into California, we have a lot of the same, we share that same line as well. So we're going to start in Kefalonia. Now, the way I've broken down this particular tasting is we're going to go island to island, and we're tasting white, red, ending on a white. There's methods of the madness, but it just helps us delve a little bit deeper into each island. So we're going to start in Kefalonia, if you see, which is an island that is one of the most, it's an interesting place to visit. If you guys know, of course, that Kefalonitas tend to be crazy, which they are, and they're lovely. So that's where we're going to begin. So let's start, if everyone had their wines open. We have our Gentilini, and I'm sorry if I have my shadow. We're on Gentilini Ribolla for our first wine. And with this map, I just want to explain again, we are dealing with an island as well that's very mountainous. In the middle, as you can see, north of Argostoli, before you would hit Myrtos, that's Mount Ainos. And that is the tallest mountain on the island. It is almost at the same altitude as Denver. As the crow flies to get to Myrtos, it can take you 20 minutes, but as the car drives, you need a couple of hours and a lot of brake dust. The brakes are crazy when you go up and down. The zone that we are talking about is going to be where you see the spine in the middle. That is where we're really going to be focusing our discussion on Kefalonia and Ribolla. So Kefalonia is a very interesting island because up until the 18th century, it was under the Venetian rule. So when you see the name Gentilini, for example, you have a lot of Italian influence on the island. And for those that have been able to visit, you can see that it's very different than the Kyklavic architecture that we're used to when we go to islands like Santorini, Mykonos, Paros. It's more Italian than it is Greek. Their food is even that way too. But as the rest of Greece, Kefalonia was ruled by many different countries, conquerors, and so forth. But after Venice, then they ended up joining Greece. Then one of the most important parts was that the island is very much in an area that is a seismologic hotbed. So the big earthquake in 1953 really destroyed the island. And then, as you can see, almost 90% of the inhabitants left because the infrastructure was so destroyed. Currently, we're up to about 30,000 people that live there on the island year round. So it's the characteristic of being on an active seismologic chain has actually played a big part in the vineyards, in the soils, and everything else. So that's something that we'll be able to start to talk about too. Kefalonia has, there's been many traders that have gone through, there's always been something there. In terms of vineyards, people have brought their little clippings of vines with them. When we're talking about Ribolla, for those that might not be familiar with the Greek version, they say, is that Ribolla Gialla of Northern Italy? Not so. Maybe 100 years ago, there might have been genetic material linking the grapes, but now this is a uniquely Greek grape. There is no genetic material linking it to anyone else in the world. The main appellation, so again, we're talking about a PDO. So if you're looking at your bottle, if you happen to have it, you will see a pink strip. For those that might not have the wine and are just tasting along, there's a pink strip on the bottle. This is how we are talking about appellation of origin wines in Greece, because each area has a certain set of requirements. And there's a limited number of bottles that are allowed out of each appellation. So if you're looking at this, so basically Petros and Mariana from Gentilini had to send this wine into the local board. They tested it, verified that it was indeed Ribolla, which is the grape variety that is allowed. And they said they would like to make X amount of bottles of wine. They were then issued the strips. If, let's say, for some reason something happened, they would be told, okay, you can get 10,000 strips and you have extra wine, you have to do something else with it. That can be done too. But we're talking about PDO Kefalonia, which is 100% Ribolla. Now, Ribolla, as you'll see here with our soils and microclimate, it's a grape variety that really enjoys very chalky soil. It needs soil that, and when we taste it too, you'll get that salinity and minerality that it needs a lot of draining in the soil in order to keep the grapes healthy, and also to promote drainage and to keep it lively and fresh. And that also will be a huge factor in the wine as it ages as well. So Ribolla does best at really high altitudes. So if you remember that slide where we had the spine of the mountain of Mount Aenos, That's where the zone is for Ribolla. We'll get to that part right there. So what's happening here though, and this is actually why we don't have a lot of Ribolla available in the US, especially or the world, is that phylloxera, which has been a very difficult beast for all of us for a couple hundred years, it has had a very profound impact on the vineyards of Kefalonia, especially because the growers didn't realize what it was. And only in the past 30 years have they realized, uh-oh, we have a problem. So they're having to start to replant all of the vineyards. So like perfect example, in 2010, when you had almost 260,000 bottles of Ribolla being produced, it's down by almost half currently. So this is something that has decreased the production and the availability, but slowly, there's a gradual scheme of replanting. It'll take a long time, but they're working on replanting the vineyards. In terms of the wine industry, it's very small on the island. There's 10 wineries total, and when we're talking about serious, we're talking about the smaller boutique wineries, but that does include the co-op because they are making some really cool wines as well. And it's a very fragmented system with the vineyards. The vineyards are passed down through family members, and it's very difficult to be able to, if you wanted to purchase land there, to be able to get lots that are next to each other so you can work them. So it's a very fragmented system. And then it's very, very steep, which you're going to see in some pictures that I'm going to show you now. But if you can look at this picture of Ribolla, look at the bottom, look underneath the soil. It's exceptionally rocky. When they're trying to plant new vineyards, they have to use a very high pressured, like it looks like a huge, like a water hose to break through the rocks in order to actually get a hole in there so they can plant the newly grafted Ribolla vine. So Ribolla is king on the western side of Greece, and originally that's where it was planted. It now has started to grow in the western Peloponnese, and because of its body and flavor profile, you're starting to see it travel throughout Greece to be planted in other parts of the country as well. But it really needs a heavily limestone and rocky soil to really thrive. And it can be made in a lot of different ways. We have some producers that are making orange wine with it, others that are making super clean versions like we're tasting today, as well as very oxidative styles. It really depends on who wants to do what. So this is an example of one of the vineyards up at the slopes in Mount Athos. As you can see here, these are super old vines. These are probably about 85, 90 years old. And here we are at, can you guys see everything that's going on? Okay, good. Just making sure, I want to make sure everyone's in good shape. So these are Ribolla vines, and these are called bush vines for those that might not know this training method. As you can see, it's very, very steeply sloped, and you have the sea breeze that's constantly hitting these vines. It's another picture so you can see how stony the soil is there as well. And you have interspersed in there as well olive trees. So imagine you're on a slope like this and you're trying to harvest these things. It's tough. They also do call, in the old days, there was a reference to vino di sasso during the Venetian era, wine of rocks, because of how stony the soil is as well. And I took this picture when I was there a few years ago, just to give you an idea of how rocky and mineral rich this soil is. You have a very thin layer of topsoil with a huge layer of limestone. So then we'll talk briefly about Mavrodaphne. So I'm talking about the grapes, then we'll talk about the wines. I know everyone's getting thirsty now. There are two clones of Mavrodaphne. We're talking about Sighello on Kefalonia. Regno is the grape variety that you typically find for sweet wines. And Mavrodaphne, even though it's a most widely planted grape in Greece, that's talking about on the sweet side. Sighello is the grape variety that is the clone that is considered the superior one, that has the smaller berries, that is producing very exciting red wines that have really interesting flavor profiles to them. So this is also what their vineyards look like. They're trellised for the most part. This is close to Gentilini. See, we have a lot of limestone in the soil here, and that's really what we're going to be tasting now too. So I think we're going to, at some point, the wineries, we're going to try to hop on. Let's see. Alexandra, Nico Karavitakis is having a problem. He can't join, for the record. But it's okay. We'll see if the other guys can get on right now.
I can send him, I will send him
Apparently something happened in the winery. They're also in the middle of harvest, so he's going to try to get on. He sent me a picture that something broke and he's fixing it. So we'll do our best.
Okay. Someone else I think is on though, under the Hellenic-American.
If it's Pedro and Mariana, then I'm talking about their winery. So hopefully they.
I've asked to unmute, but I haven't gotten a response yet.
Okay, guys, if you hear me, make sure you let Alexandra know so you can hop on and say hi. So the family, as you can see, we have the winery in our picture here. This is from Mariana Cosmetatos' family. The family in recent times have come from, they came from Italy in the old days, as we were talking about. But now in the 2020, we are now into the third and fourth generation of the family that has that is running the winery. So in 2002, Mariana and Petros they assumed responsibility. Petros is a Greek Australian, and Mariana is, even though she's Greek, she does speak her English with a British accent, so I'm hoping they'll be able to say hello. And they met at a party back in 2002, both from Kefalonia, and then decided to leave their respective jobs and take over the winery full time. This is Petros and Mariana, as you see on the left, and their daughter Iriana, who hopefully will be following in her parents' path. She does love the vineyards. She does work with them in the vineyards. I know she's there these days during harvest. So they have a vineyard named after her on the Mavrodaphni side. So that's the family that we're talking about right now. So let's taste. I think everybody's a little thirsty now, I would hope. So to be the appellation for Kefalonia is 100% Robola, high altitude vineyards. We're almost at 2,000 feet above sea level. And it's a very limestone rich soil. So for me, I get a lot of that, like a pretty limestone, and Michael, of course, chime in too. Let me know what your thoughts are. And like a little bit of like a lemon zest. And this is very young. This is the 2019 that we're trying right now. And there was an interesting article, and not that I'm trying to, that I just saw this morning. I didn't get a chance to read it in full depth. It was a Greek magazine called Gastronomos, saying how Kefalonia Robola is on the parallel path to becoming one of the great white wines of Greece as Santorini, because it has the ability to age for a very long time. But that's more in the more modern styles of producing the wine. As you can see, the wine we're trying today is a Stelvin, because Petros, also being from Australia, really embraces the more modern technology with it. But in terms of the closure, we felt that once he switched to Stelvin, it really preserved the freshness of the wine and has allowed it to age for a longer time. I've tasted back to 2015 with Stelvin, and it's just, the results are mind-blowing to me, at least.
I think we're on, Andrea. I've unmuted our wonderful couple from Greece.
Petros, Mariana, you there?
Yes, we are.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
Can you see us?
I can't. Can you see them? Alexandra, can you bring them on? Or no?
They will have to take off their camera on their own. Let me try myself. No, the video is on. I see them. We should be able to see them. Can they see us?
Once they start speaking.
Petros and Mariana, when they spoke, did they come up?
Yes, you could see them when they spoke.
Oh, okay.
Okay, wonderful.
We're
So
here.
welcome.
There you go.
So I'd like to present to you guys, Petros and Mariana. Guys, please feel free. If I made a mistake, correct me or take it on.
I think you said everything nicely, and we agree 100%. I think Stelvin is the way forward for Robola, and we're trying our best to make this wine worthwhile.
Talk to us a little bit about what you find in like the flavor profile, and what your thoughts are about it too.
Mariana will do that because I'm a little bit tired, to be honest with you. I had a really long day. I'm just gonna pop in.
Yeah, he was picking Mavrodaphni this morning at 6 o'clock in the morning with Iriana. Yes.
Anyway.
So they're picking Iriana's vineyard today. It was lovely grapes. Lovely vintage from Mavrodaphni, and actually before Robola's not in yet.
Really?
Yeah.
When are you
Oh,
thinking?
we just pressed about 2 tons of Robola for the wild paths, and now it's fermenting nicely. But on Sunday, we're going full blast for Robola, for the regular Robola, and see how it goes. It's going to be it's not going to be a very long vintage this year. It's going to be a short one, but everything's going to come at the same time. And that's a little bit worrying for us because, you know, we have to do a lot of management in the winery for space and, you know, and labor. So see how it goes. It looks okay this year. It was mild. Talking about the Robola that you're tasting now, the 2019, it was a really good vintage. Even though every year we have less and less amounts are produced because there is phylloxera on the island. I don't know if you mentioned that. I didn't hear that.
I did.
So the vineyards that are on their own rootstock, the prophylaxeric vineyards, are disappearing right now. So there is.
How old are those vines on their own rootstock?
You can find vineyards from 80 years old.
Wow.
But they produce very, very limited amounts. That's the problem.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We can't see you.
I don't know how, I don't know why, because I think I've got all the cameras on.
No, something blocking your camera. Something is a piece of paper or something. No.
Hold on.
I mean, we enjoy this. Yes, now we can see you.
Okay.
Perfect.
So you can find in the Robola region, you can find like 80-year-old vines, but the problem vineyards. But the problem is because of the phylloxera, the production every year goes lower and lower. So now there is from 2004 we started uprooting and putting new vineyards under American rootstock. So now we have to wait a little bit longer to get better results. But we're trying to preserve whatever we have. Even though that Andrea knows that for the wild paths, for example, every year we produce less and less and less, but the quality is high.
Can you propagate from those original vines?
No. What we do is we take canes and we graft them in the nursery in American rootstock. We can do that, but we cannot replant canes straight on the soil because the phylloxera hits the limestone and it's all the areas affected. So there is a problem.
Wow.
Okay. So every year, I'm telling you, there is specific regions that are completely wasted. They're completely gone. But you know, we're expecting in the next 5 years to get good results from the first plantings. We're talking 2004. So then we're going to get some even more interesting results. But there's a lot of work in the vineyard to be done, and there's a lot of work that we do in the winery to make this wine modern and clean.
I'm sorry to keep going back to the old vines.
Yes.
When you taste the grapes of the old vines versus the vines that you put on American rootstock, is there a taste difference in your opinion?
Fruit-wise, it's not really any difference, but you can get high acidity, more concentration of acid, and you get that kind of, let's say, if your palate is trained, especially when you taste the grapes, you can get that minerality straight from the grape. If you go beyond the sugar, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it needs a lot of practice. To be honest with you, I expect from some regions, even the new vines, to give amazing results, even better results from the old vines. Because the old vines sometimes, you know, they're not. We're just trying to keep them like trying to maintain them, just to cure them, to produce few grapes per vine, just to preserve that vineyard. But the taste is, it's there. In both vineyards, you get good flavors. Different profiles, but good flavors.
Cool.
Okay. And again, it depends a lot on the producer. You know, we produce very clean Robolas. Let's say, you know, we're trying to preserve the flavor of the citrus, the minerality. with the Stelvin, as Andrea said, you know, that aging potential goes higher. If you have a cork,
Yeah.
for example, within the first 2 years, you get this kind of honey melon, no, not melon, honey and tea taste, like chamomile, and gives you a sense of the aging of the wine, of evolution of the wine, which is quite very soon. With the Stelvin, it's like putting the wine in a time capsule, and whatever happens in the bottle is happens nicely and slowly.
Mhm.
So you don't get that oxidation in color and flavor, but you get this minerality coming out nicely and quite more intense.
It
Yeah,
becomes
this is
more
a
of a
biggie.
Riesling. It does have more of a Riesling thing.
Sure.
It really is such a baby. So for note to those who were able to purchase the wines, and there is still some, we're actually towards the end of 2019 on our end here, you know, in my warehouse. Get some and forget about it. Like, that's what I was saying when I found a 2015 randomly last year. I just about dropped, my jaw hit the ground. I was just so floored by how well this ages.
Was it the regular classic Ribolla? Was it the classic Ribolla?
No, it was the regular one. It was the first time you did it in Stelvin. I found a random bottle. It was amazing.
Because we have been experimenting with aging of the Ribolla with the R. And the new experiment that we would do, we started off in 2015. We've only done it 2 years. We only do it in exceptional years. So we did in 2015 and again 2017. We haven't done it since. We're not going to do it this year either because the grape has to be exceptional. Is allowing the grape to age on its fine leaves for 2 years, the wine, to sit on its fine leaves with batonnage for 2 whole years, and then be released even after that. So we tried the 2015 now. It's a 5-year-old wine. It is absolutely exceptional. A master of wine tasted it and he said that's our icon wine now. Okay, it's the best wine we make. Ribolla has this potential to age if it's treated properly and if it's, you know, and then if it's put under Stelvin.
Do you mind if we, just for the, you know, just to keep sure we don't want to get people too crazy on our wine geekiness, are you okay if we move on to the Mavrodaphne for a few minutes just to have a quick chat on that?
Absolutely.
Okay, I don't mean to rush you. I just want to make sure that everybody gets, you know, because, you know, we don't want people to start getting too drunk and then they can't, by the end, they don't even know what they're tasting.
Okay.
So let's talk a little bit about Eclipse. Would you also give our audience a bit of a discussion of how the name Eclipse came about, aside from the Mavrodaphne? Because I don't know if you jumped on and heard me talk about the 2 clones, and we're dealing with the Tsigello here.
Yes. Yeah, in Greece, you can't, first of all, if it's called Mavrodaphne on the label, it has to be sweet. Otherwise, Greeks get very confused. Mavrodaphne for a Greek is the sweet wine that is given in church. And it's typically the wine that is made in Patras with a different clone of Mavrodaphne. The clone that we have here in Kefalonia is completely different. If you look at it as a vine, it's almost a different grape variety, and it makes this lovely, intense, dry wine. But we can't call it Mavrodaphne, which is fine, and we call it Eclipse. And we call it Eclipse because the first vintage of this wine, we had the total lunar eclipse, which was absolutely spectacular that year in August.
So you guys started harvesting this, Mavrodaphne just started coming in like yesterday, today, right?
With the first vineyard came in today.
Yes, this was today's vineyard was the new vineyard. That is the first crop, the first year of producing very good quality grapes. And we're not going to make Eclipse out of that. It's just we're going to do some experiments on it and see how we can stretch the variety. But the estate Mavrodaphne, let's say the older vines, they're going to be picked in about 10 days from now.
Okay.
And they look exceptional. Actually, we're down to 5 tons per hectare right now in as a yield. We dropped quite a lot. I posted a picture of me lying down on the vine.
I put that back on Instagram.
And if you see around me, there is a lot of dead grapes, the old grapes, the grapes that we did green harvest around me. So yeah, Eclipse is I don't know. What do you want to say? Do you want to?
I'm getting right now. I opened my bottle about an hour ago. It's just starting to open now. I mean, obviously the color is still super young and super fresh. We're on we have the 2017 that we're tasting.
Okay.
I'm getting a little bit of that, like a little bit of anise, that like the black licorice and the red, the really ripe red fruits. And I like the way that the tannin is very well integrated with the acid. This is definitely a wine that, you have that with a little bit of a fattier cut of meat, and it's really going to be a wonderful pairing.
Okay, just to state that you have the Stelvin, don't you? You have the Stelvin in the bottle or the cork.
Stelvin, only Stelvin for the US, my dear.
Okay. What we do, we bottle the same day. We bottle Stelvin and cork. We use cork for a little bit for the Greek market and the French market. Now the French market are required. They asked for us to bring Stelvin again, so there's a switch there.
Yeah, even the French.
Even the French.
That's impressive.
Okay.
Yes.
Now for the reds, Stelvin for the whites is really, really good, but for the reds, it's creates a little bit of an issue because the wine is in a time capsule right now. So again, the wine will evolve very, very, very slowly. So it will take a little bit longer when you open it just to get a little bit of air. If you taste parallel this wine with a corked wine, well, not a corked wine, with a wine with a corked, with a cork, not a corked wine, sorry guys.
Got you, don't worry.
You'll see that the one with a cork has developed a little bit long. It's more evolved in the bottle, so it's more ready to drink. And actually, I did this little test the other day with this Master of Wine that we have in 2 bottles, and it was like 2 different wines. So I would say that the Stelvin will age nicely. Even it's going to take longer to age. It will take longer to mature. And some specs for this wine is 2017 was absolutely fantastic vintage. It was dry. It was we had some help from some Australian friends from the Barossa Valley, because we work with a vineyard there is called Polmar Estates, and the guy who owns the vineyard, he was what was it?
A grange grower.
A grange grower. He used to he has vineyards and he sells his Syrah from Grange for the Penfolds. So he came to Kefalonia. We're brothers from another mother.
Oh boy.
So he gave us a lot of his expertise in the viticulture part, and we did a lot of work in the vineyard. So we say that this wine is made in the vineyard. Then in the winery is very basic techniques. Okay, it's very, very easy to do. Few things: cold maceration, a little bit of a lot of pisage, just to push downs, nothing to splash and aerate. Very, very controlled oxygen, and 40 days of post fermentation maceration, which gives this kind of a little bit of elegance on this wine.
And actually, I'd like to say too for
Andrea,
Yeah.
if you allow me to interrupt 1 second, I just wanted to mention Michael. We have a former colleague, a very good friend of mine, who's also on the Zoom meeting with us, Edward Bourgeois, who was the former Somm of Café Bouloud. Edward has a question for our winemakers. Alexandra, can you just unmute him real quick so you can ask his question and say hi to Michael?
I've asked him to unmute. I hope he can press on the button. Let's hope that. Perfect.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
Hi,
Hey
Edward.
Marcos. Mr.
Hello.
Madrigal, long time
Hey,
no see, my
Edouard.
friend.
How are you, buddy?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thanks. What's going on?
You know, staying, you know, hydrated, I would say.
Good.
So
No, I had a question. Hi everyone. I had a question about the Robola. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the wine on time, so I'm the one to blame. But I'm interested to taste it in the future. Is there any residual sugar?
No, 0. We're about 1 gram of residual sugar.
Okay,
Okay, we fermented dryness.
great. Can't wait to taste it.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Michael, do you have any thoughts about where have you ever had a dry Mavrodaphne? I know for many people,
Yeah,
especially
sure.
Greeks too, it's a very unique concept when we talk about dry Mavrodaphne, because again, as Mariana said, how many people think Mavrodaphne is sweet. Ugh, no, but that's why this is really a fun wine to try for that particular reason.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I've been to Crete and other parts of Greece, so I definitely had tasted it while I was there. And I have to say, this wine it's young. That's the first impression when I taste it. It's aromatic, and the first notes that come to me are the sort of the American oak pungent aromas. You know, the dill, almost like a herbal aromatic quality that really hits me in the face, which is intense. And I think this wine will age great and allow all of those intense components to kind of come together and sort of amalgamate. The one thing that impresses me about the wine is really the palate and the energy of it. I mean, this wine, it gives the impression that it's kind of deep and rich, but it's very tangy on the palate. The acidity is really, really nice. And you can tell there's really good farming that's being done here. So bravo really with the effort. And I'd love to see this in about a decade.
Actually, we would love to see
8,200
it
bottles,
too.
Michael, you have to get it. That's the problem.
We don't make a lot. We only make 8,000 bottles a year, 9,000
Right.
bottles a year, whatever our vineyards give.
So that's where I was going to say, if we have any people on our, any participants that are into collecting and would love to start to build perhaps a library from Greece, I think you need to definitely grab some bottles of both the Ribolla and the Eclipse and forget about them for a few years and come back to them.
Absolutely.
Food for thought, because it's, you don't have to spend thousands of dollars on a bottle, and you can get some great wines.
Right.
That there's still, it's, for us too, on the import side, not, it's, we always end up we sell what we have, and we'd love to be able to keep it. But of course, it's a business as well. We try to keep wines as long as we can. But we have probably another maybe 50, 60 cases of this wine in the country if we're lucky right now. And then it is what it is. So people are into it. Please feel free to stock up soon.
And I think you have more than we do.
Hey, listen, I took your Ribolla. I took the Wild Pass finally, and COVID season happened. What am I supposed to do?
Wild Pass, you have more than we do. For sure. We're out.
That's it. So, but guys, thank you so much for jumping on with us. I know it's really late and you're in harvest, and it's crazy. So thank you so much for jumping on for a few minutes with us.
It's our pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having
Hope
us.
you enjoy it.
Thank you.
And best of luck during harvest.
Thank
Yeah,
you. Thank you.
We wish continued good weather.
It is good so far. Yes.
Good. Kisses to Iriana from me.
We will. Okay.
Bye-bye,
Take
guys.
care. Bye.
Guys. I'll make sure that they're good. So, do we have any questions? Well, we're going to take more at the end, but if there's any random questions now, we can then take them, or should we continue to Crete?
Well, I've taken our video.
I've
Oh,
allowed
I see,
everyone to
Mariana.
unmute themselves.
Okay.
There.
Just for you guys to know, I just received a text message from Nico Karavitakis, who was supposed to join us next. He has a pretty, something happened, they're in the middle of harvest too, something happened to one of his pieces of equipment. He sent me a picture of it. It doesn't look good. So he apologizes for not being able to join us. But we will have Apostoli Thimiopoulos coming up in a little bit. So hold your horses. We have one more winemaker coming. But we wish Nico to fix whatever he's got to fix because it didn't look good. But let's go to Crete real quick, guys. And then we will continue. And again, thanks, Mariana and Petro, for coming on. Crete is a really interesting island. As Michael's been there too, he knows it's big. We are really, it's one of the fifth largest island in the Mediterranean. And when I was looking at that, I'm like, Jesus, what the heck is bigger than this? But there are a few islands that are bigger than Crete. It is the largest island, of course, in the country, and it makes a lot of wine. We are really going to focus very specifically on the part called Chania. because that is where Nico Karavitakis' family and the winery are from. But, you know, Crete is one of the history of the island dates back thousands of years. So it's, even during the Minoan civilization, they found amphora and pips and everything. So we know that there has been winemaking on the island for thousands of years. Just like we were briefly discussing with Petra, phylloxera has also started to rear its ugly head on the island as well. So they are replanting their vineyards too. A lot of the newer, you know, there's that fine balance, of course, of being able to find these beautiful parcels that are really old vines, but there's a lot of replanting going on as well. And you're seeing a lot of the next generation, like the sons and the daughters from the growers are coming back to the island, and they are producing the wine. So it's a really vibrant place that's got a hotbed of, it was experimentation, but there's a lot of unity and cohesion from the different winemakers, and they really work well together to discuss different ideas. And it's really, really unique, even as a place to visit. I mean, it's a stunning island. And if you haven't been, I suggest going and hiking the San Maria Gorge for a day. You'll never be the same after that. You won't be able to walk for 3 days, but that's a good story.
One of the best restaurants I've ever been into in my life was in Crete.
I think I'm with you on that.
In Heraklion.
There's some good stuff. How much seafood did you drink too by that
Pekasi,
point?
it was called.
Which one?
Very good food. It was called Pekasi, P-E-K-A-S-I, something like that.
Okay.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
I had the best fish soup of my life over there on a beach somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it was ridiculous. So we are going to be focusing, if you see, this is another infographic map that the Wines of Crete presented. We are really talking about the White Mountains and Psiloritis. That's the side of Crete we're going to be focused on right now. Just for everybody to know, again, very mountainous. So we're back into the theme of mountains, and we're in the southernmost part of Greece, even though it's Mediterranean and it's hot. A lot of vineyards are at a little bit higher altitude, so it is a little cooler than you would expect. And there are 11 indigenous grape varieties. We are talking today about, we're doing 2.5 is where I'm going to go with that one. So as I said, we are really focusing on the Hellenic side of Crete. So as our arrow is, we're really going to just zero in on there, because we could spend 3 classes just talking about Crete and we would never even chase the same thing twice. So Hellenic is the prefecture that we are talking about, and the Psiloritis Mountains are the border on and the White Mountains. So then we have as well, so like a horseshoe, I guess you want to call it. The White Mountains are the most influential part of the Psiloritis chain for Hellenic, and the Psiloritis does peak at 8,000 feet above sea level. So there is snow up there too, and people ski. So we do have, and that's pretty far south, so it does happen. You do get really cool breezes as well, so that keeps the temperatures down. And of course, you know, cooler temperatures as well really help get the ripeness and the acidity to a really a good level where they're refreshing, and they do pair really well with foods. So we're in the huge mix too of soils. So we're going to taste a couple different things. We're starting with Vidiano though, so we're going to be discussing the main grape variety of Crete that we know of is Vidiano, which is a grape variety that is really becoming the poster child for Crete. It's one that makes a lot of different styles. It's something that definitely needs careful work in the vineyards. You need to keep the yields down in order to produce a really high quality wine. So that's where you need to be a little careful with it. Depending also what the vineyards have in there. If there's some little wild grasses growing, you'll get some of that too. It's a grape variety that has medium to high acidity and has really nice structure on the palate. So where Ribolla might have been a little more angular, also it's younger, under Selvin. We're even tasting 2019, and this is under cork. It's going to be a little bit rounder, a little bit lusher. Then we're going to discuss, when we go to the red, Pozzifali, which is I would say also for Greece and for Crete, a really unique grape variety that it's Mediterranean in style, meaning that it's got a lot of fruit to it, really great acid. Tannins are in that mid-range, so you can pair it with a lot of different things. It's a great grape to blend with things. So for many years, you've seen it blended with Syrah, Merlot, different grape varieties, just to help give it a little more boost. And so we're going there. And then, of course, a really random grape, which has never really been grown on the island before, but it's from the Mediterranean, is Mavrotragano, which if you've tasted reds from Santorini especially, it's from there. But Nico realized that this Mavrotragano would be really a good partner in Crete for his vineyards. So he just recently started planting in the past decade some Mavrotragano. So this is our primer on Crete. And just to give you an idea of where the Karavitakis vineyards are, as you can see here, it's a lot of limestone, a lot of chalk. We're up at altitude again, probably here about up to 500 meters, so 1,500 feet above sea level. Here we're trellised for everything. There's very few vineyards that are phylloxera free, and those are way up somewhere in the mountains. And just some more views as well to give you guys some examples of where we are. Now, this is the winery. For those, also Nico has installed solar panels throughout. So his goal ultimately would be to become a fully green, carbon neutral winery. But right now he's at about 50%, just to give you guys a little bit of an idea. So in the 1940s, Nico's family had established the winery. His father, Manoli, was the third generation of the family to take over the winery, and he went to Italy to learn about enology. So the original wines from Karavitakis used to be a lot of Sangiovese, a lot of Italian varieties, because he felt that he could grow them in Crete, because he felt that the soils and the climate were very similar. But then Nico, his son, decided that he wanted to take the winery into a different direction and really start to focus more on the Cretan varieties, because also you ended up with a lot of, this is where a resurgence in terms of then when this next generation of the younger winemakers came back to the island, they were starting to experiment with more modern vinification techniques, and they felt that their grapes were better suited to doing some more interesting things. So that's where you're starting to see that shift. And that's actually even more important in our future series, when we start talking about why we don't see as many international varietals in other parts of Greece anymore. But that's Nico, and we wish him well. Hope he fixes the piece of equipment that decided to, make it interesting today. He is the fourth generation of the family he is now in charge of the winery. He is the enologist as well as in the vineyards. He wears many, many, many hats. Lovely guy. And I hope maybe we'll be able to see him at another time, but we wish him, like I said, very good luck with harvest right now. We are going to start with the Klima White, which is 100% VDNL. And of course, Michael, if you have any questions or thoughts on this too, let me know.
Yeah, sure.
It's really an interesting grape that people might not know about as 100%. So please give me your thoughts on this one too.
I'll tell you, I'm impressed. I'm impressed by this wine because, well, first of all, the fact that this grower first started with Sangiovese, first started with grapes that weren't indigenous to the region, and then came around to focus really on the indigenous grapes, I think it's the right move, because Greece has so many great indigenous grapes. What's more important is not to make a wine marketable, rather than make a wine more singular. And you can only get singularity out of wines when you really have wines that are indigenous to the growing region that you're making the wines. So I applaud the grower to really focus on the indigenous grapes of Crete. That said, those pictures of the limestone hills and mountains, I smell that in this wine. I smell limestone, like without a doubt. Like if you got a rock out of the vineyard and clapped it together, you can really smell that here. It smells like that, and it also smells like after it rains outside, where you get that ozone-y smell, like you get that on this wine. And that, when I smell that kind of stuff in wine, that tells me this is from a real place, with primary rock, with not a lot of topsoil, where the vines are digging deep to get to water and translating that character into the wine itself. So that said, from the nose immediately, I love this wine. And on the palate, which is nice about it, it's kind of an easy drinking wine. It's fruity. It's not as intense as the Ribolla. It's not as you know, kind of severe and tight with lots of tension. It's more of a softer pear fruit flavored wine. And I think it's fun. It's kind of serious and fun at the same time. It's like the haircut. It's business in the front and party in the back.
I think you need that too. You know, you can't, everything can't be so serious with wine, and it really makes, it gives people some, you know, and I mean, my mouth is salivating right now, and it's just like, I'm begging for some sort of food that you can, you know, pair with it. And of course, you know, as a sommelier too, you know this, you don't need, and this is where I always tell people, you don't need to pair Greek wine and Greek food. It goes with everything. Yeah. And just something with a little bit of fat to it will really just cut, the acid will cut right through the fat, and it would just be an amazing pairing.
Mm.
So.
Good stuff.
And klima, for those that, you know, this means wine. So therefore, if you're, you know, in case we have some non-Greeks on this particular Zoom, that's what that means. So that is our klima white. Then let's move to the red. So we are now going to be trying, so this is actually the first year that Nico went to this particular blend. In the past, up until 2017, this used to be Kotzifali Merlot. And a lot of that had to do with, as you were alluding to, Michael, the vineyards. He felt that the Kotzifali vines were still a little too young to be fully expressive. It used to be, in the older days, it was like a 70-30 blend of Merlot. The Kotzifali can be a grape that can be very acidic and really high in tannin. It can get aggressive. So that's why he used to blend in Merlot to soften it. The Mavro Tragano here is now to the point where it's just an enhancer. This is really meant to show what Kotzifali does. This is very young. We also just brought this vintage in. It needs some time to kind of chill out and breathe and relax and sit. But it's definitely a great variety, as I was saying, how it's known for the Mediterranean. You can almost taste the sun and the sand and some more of the earthiness of it that pairs really well with a lot of different things.
Yeah, I agree. It's young. It needs time to kind of, it's disjointed. It needs time to kind of come together. You're tasting all the components separately at this moment, where it needs a little bit of time just kind of come together. I mean, the components are good, they're juicy, they're flavorful, they're aromatic, they're a little reductive, but, you know, I think a good couple months.
Yeah, it just needs to be decanted for now. If you're going to drink it now, decant it for a couple of hours. Again, it's what we were talking about with Mariana and Petros, that the blessing and the curse of what we do is these are not huge production wines that you can keep. You can have such a huge library back of vintages. But same thing here, where it's not that much wine that's being made, but I think it's a really cool interpretation of what the grape variety is. For those that have this open, don't drink it all tonight. If you can, leave it till tomorrow and go back to it. I think then it'll have time to open up as well, and it should be a little bit less searing and aggressive on the palate.
Cool.
You agree?
Yeah.
All right. Now, I think we should have Apostoli Thimiopoulos somewhere. Do we have him still on, or did he go to bed?
Let me check.
Apostole.
I've unmuted him already.
He might be sleeping.
Let me try again. Here he is. Oh, and the beautiful country in the background.
Now we're going to Santorini. You'll wake up.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Were you sleeping?
No, never.
Not during harvest.
The joke with me and Apostoli is that every time he gets in the car, maybe it's my driving because I drive really fast, he passes out.
Exactly.
Because I don't know if it's a function of my driving or I'm boring. But anyway, so I'd like to introduce Apostoli Thimiopoulos. He'll explain a little bit more about what we're doing. This is his third project that we're actually tasting the Acrotera Santorini.
Yes.
So let him explain. Apostoli, if you wouldn't mind explaining a little bit about yourself, the winery, what the project is, your vision for Santorini, and I'll go from there.
Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, nice. So the project started at 2015 when my best friend there, Haridimos Hatzidakis, gave me space at his new winery to start something with my own brand. And unfortunately, after some years, Hieronymus passed away. So today we produce only a few bottles till we finished our own winery there. We bought land. We bought land there to build our small boutique winery. The unique thing with Santorini is first of all it's many things. It's the soil, it's the variety, it's the ungrafted grapes, the pruning system that is very unique. So for me it was really, I love this place from the first time I've been there, from 2009. It was my first vintage there. And 2015, I decided to start producing my own wine. Acrotera is the traditional blend of 3 varieties. Melina is here.
She's not playing that one.
She's not sleeping yet. Melina, so I'm doing babysitting also.
You're getting Father of the Year award up there.
Yes, it's midnight here, but she's not to the bed yet.
She's a Greek baby. She's good.
Maybe a good Assyrtiko is a good answer to go to the bed. So this is 100% stainless steel wine. The alcohol is 14.2, but you don't feel hot the wine.
No.
This is what I want to express from this terroir. From very hot terroir like Santorini is, we want to produce fresh and very, very elegant wines. It's very easy to produce heavy and very thick wines from Santorini, because very easy you can have 15 alcohol and more. But the most interesting is to have freshness and cool, to feel the wine, to feel the acidity, expressing for a very hot terroir like Santorini is. So we did a choose of the vineyards because we produce only a few bottles. So it's very easy for me to choose only the vineyards I want. This means high altitude vineyards in the island, on the island. The altitude is about 300 meters. It's the highest of the island. So something else that we are doing is that we share directly after the fermentation the lees from the wine to don't give more body, because is the alcohol and the variety that give this. We don't need more body, more structure to the wine. I chose to use the 3 varieties, the main varieties of the islands. So this wine is a blend of Assyrtiko, Anthiri, and Aidani. Anthiri and Aidani is more aromatic than Assyrtiko, that gives the minerality. And of course, the aging for potential aging.
It's a baby. This is a baby.
It's so good.
Oof.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, I think Santorini is the gateway drug to Greek wines. It's the one that you recognize how great Greek wines can be from your first taste of Santorini. Because
exactly,
like when you think about it,
yes, if you see the map,
Santorini is an island, it's hot. There's no irrigation.
Exactly.
There's no rain in the summertime.
Right. Some years the last rain is February and the next is October.
So how can anything survive on that island, let alone be incredibly delicious? It just it makes you it doesn't make sense how a wine can be this good from a place that is so infertile.
It's a unicorn.
Yeah, it's
exactly.
really
If you
magic.
see the map,
Yep.
After Santorini is the Africa. So it's very impressive how fresh wines producing from a very hot place like like South Mediterranean. Yes.
It's crazy. And you know, when you have like white wines of real character, usually there has to be some sort of oak aging involved, right? When you think of when you think of white Burgundy, when you think of white Bordeaux, when you think of California Chardonnay, these are the wines that we're told are the great wines of the world. Yet, when you have this wine, those wines see a lot of oak. The oak is almost an ingredient in the great quality of the wine. This wine sees no oak at all. And the character is so strong. And it's such a unique thing that it's another reason why this wine should really be in the king of white wines. It should be at the table of the king of great white wines in the world.
And do you also, I'm getting, now for those that have the wine with them, you can almost smell as well, aside from taste, like it's salty. And this is definitely why you need this with food to really enjoy it. But you almost smell some of the volcano, which, you know, I'll go back. I know I jumped through a bunch of slides, but we'll discuss it as well. I just don't want Apostoli to have, you know, Melina go crazy and then, you know, start drinking all the wine. But you can really smell the sea. And this is, I think, also something throughout everything we've tasted too. You smell the salinity, you taste it, and it makes your mouth water. And it's just an amazing thing to get to appreciate. And that's why, even though everyone's like, why are you ending with a white? This is like a red wine to me. You can drink this and, you know.
Yeah, this is
sometimes happens something. A cloud from the sea cover all the island, and this is the irrigation for this vine.
Yeah, like it's like a marine layer. They get that weird marine layer that comes through.
Yeah, exactly. But this is not standard, not happen usually, and some years we don't have it. The years that we have this cloudy, the wines are more salty and more typical to Santorini.
Was that how it was in 2017? Was there a lot of like the cloud, the marine layer?
Yes, it was. Yes.
Okay. What did you think of 2017 as a vintage?
It's really very cool vintage with potential for long aging. Very long.
Okay.
You know what I love about Santorini also? That it has, like, the fruit flavors are sort of like a peachy kind of juicy fruit, like white peach. But then there's this sort of bitterness, like herbal,
exactly.
like almost
like a wild
nettles. Yeah,
the wine that you describe now, producing from the high altitude vineyards. The vineyards close to the sea, not producing so complex wines.
Yeah, so this is from Pyrgos at this point, right? This is where
this is from the Pyrgos, yes.
So for those who have been to Santorini, not obviously along the caldera, when you see the little village, it's kind of at the top before you would go down either Kamari or you would head down towards that's where Pyrgos.
Some years before, there were some vineyards on the rock, on the caldera, but today there are hotels there.
Yeah.
How old is the vine? Actually, Apostoli, if you wouldn't mind, I apologize. I don't want to get anybody dizzy, so I'm going to do this slowly. Can you quickly just talk a little bit about the culures? And I always call these the
the culures is the vines that I have in my background.
And here.
Yes. The pruning system in Santorini is culura. Culura means basket. The growers doing this basket to put the grapes inside to the basket to protect it not only from the strong wind, but only from the damage from the sand, because the strong wind moving the sand, and the sand killed
it's like
the grapes.
Nature's SPF.
So, yes, after the flowering, early the spring, they put the bunches with the grapes into the baskets, and the grapes ripening into the baskets.
So they look like, this is a picture that I have up right now. this is in the winter when the new cane is coming around, so they're making a larger culura. But then the grapes are on the inside of that particular picture, if you were there at that point.
Yeah. Yes, this is the baskets.
So, I guess at this point, does anybody, Michael, do you have any questions for Apostoli about Acrotera or anything else?
Yeah, I have a question just about the
Or does anybody?
the politics of the island right now, and how difficult is it to be a winemaker at this point with the prices of grapes, with the encroaching development of hotels on the island? I mean, that's what was happening before COVID. So has anything changed with the difficulty of being a wine grower?
Exactly. It's true that the tourism offer more profits to the people, to the citizens there. So the wine growing in Santorini is third or fourth job for families. They have rooms to let. They have restaurants. They have smaller boutique hotels mainly. So they have the vines traditionally from heritage, but with the first opportunity they sell the land for rich people that coming to the island because it's very prestigiously island, and this and the vines also the low production, the low yields are a big problem. Because there are years that some vines haven't grapes. You grow all the year, but you haven't grapes on the vines. This is the reason that the last years the prices of the grapes increasing suddenly. Some markets aren't ready to accept this increasing.
Sure.
And of course, cause some problems for the wineries to sell the wines.
Yeah.
But the main market for the island, for the wineries, was the domestic market on the island. Because many tourists come there, drinking the wine on the restaurants, the taverns. There are very good restaurants, and also take some gifts with them.
Sure.
So a big part of the production of the bottles drinking there.
Has the pandemic affected tourism in Santorini?
It's the first place in now after COVID that directly go to the normal situation, normal way.
That's good.
Yeah.
You know, it needed it. I mean, this is something I was alluding to in one of my slides too, is that there's a pressure situation, and of course, Apostoli, anybody that's been there too knows that everyone wants to go there.
Yeah.
But the island can't handle it. The infrastructure is past the breaking point, and you're treading a fine line right now between destroying the uniqueness and the beauty of the island for commercial purposes or taking a step back. I have a special place in my heart for the island because I've had family from there and I've been going since I was a child. I mean, I learned how to drive stick shift on that island, which is really cute. You know, so I have a very, for me, it's always been a place where when I get off the plane, I'm home. But it's gotten too much. And there needs to be, everyone needs to take a step back. Everyone wants to ride the train of Assyrtiko and Santorini, but that should be considered for Greece, the white Burgundy of Greece. We have so many other options that are more accessible on a daily level, like we tried Ribolla and even Vidiano for white, for example, that's where we need to elevate and drink those and then aspire to those days that we really want to celebrate and have a good celebration and really enjoy something. That's when we look to, okay, you know what? I had a great thing happened in my life. Let's open a bottle. I mean, when would you really open a white Burgundy? You know, you wouldn't do it every day. I mean, if I wish I could, it's not my life, but you know, I think that we need to put things into a certain context as well. and in order to preserve what we still have. Because as Apostoli was saying, you know, this is their 4th or 5th jobs. They'd rather make more money on a hotel room than they will on a, this is backbreaking work.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
if you realized all this situation, the wines aren't expensive. Yeah.
It's just in the past 10 years. That's why when everybody says, why are they so expensive? Why not? There's a lot going on. There's a reason they should be.
Yeah,
it's so unique.
It is.
I've been buying the wines for every increase over the last 10 years, and it's still a good value retail at almost $40 now.
Could I ask a question, everyone? I'm Clay Maitland. I'm on the board of the chamber. It's a very arid climate, obviously, not unusual in the Greek islands and indeed on the mainland. What's the water supply like for these vines? Are you able to actually adequately irrigate the fields?
No.
Irrigation's not allowed.
No irrigation.
At all.
There's no
No.
rain.
Only when the vines, Mr. I don't remember your name.
Right.
It's right.
Mr. Maitland.
Yes. You are when the vines are young, very young.
Yeah.
The first year, the people, because you can see this irrigation system if you visit the island, but only in the very, very young vineyards. The last years, traditionally, they never irrigate the vines, but they have so many lands to grow. Now, the vineyards mainly owned to professionals, and the new vineyards, not the new vineyards owned to professionals, the winemakers and some very professional growers. So they give water, they irrigate the vines the first 2 years. But only a few drops. Don't imagine water.
Drip irrigation, and that's actually
yes.
That's prevalent.
Only to save the vines from the dryness.
Yeah, that's something actually. What you're at, the question you're asking is relevant to all of Greece. That it's only the vines are only allowed. It's like a droplet. It's drip irrigation, and then you're only allowed. Apostoli, correct me if I'm wrong, to use the drip irrigation later on if there is like an extreme drought where you would decimate a vineyard if you didn't give it some water.
Yes, exactly.
But in Santorini,
because today they are doing investments, and if you are in mainland and you produce like me and I'm producing Assyrtiko, if something hailstorm something destroy my vineyard, I can buy Assyrtiko from another region, some kilometers from me. But in Santorini, you can't use wine grapes from other islands. So there is one way only to protect very good your production. So this is the reason that they care a lot their vineyards. And they try to do the best to save some very dry years and summer the vines, to don't destroy it, because this means they go back many years. If in normal a vineyard produce grapes from the second, third vintage in a region, in the mainland, in Santorini, first grapes producing after 5-6 years.
Yes. Okay, I have one other question, if I can follow up with one, and it's a question that we touched on just a minute ago, which is the cruise trade. In other words, the tourist trade, the visitors coming on cruise ships. Assuming that we don't see too many cruise ship passengers for the next year or two, is there any plan to market the wines that are produced in Santorini to a wider clientele, given the fact that you're not going to be able to sell directly to tourists?
Apostoli, before you answer, I think I'm going to give you the business of wine side of that first, if that's okay. And then
yes, please do. That's what I want to hear.
And Apostoli will actually back me up in terms of what the harvests have done. So we're tasting a 2017, which, just to take a couple of steps back, there is a lot of producers, and this is not Apostoli because this is his current release. Many people rush their Santorinis to the market and they want to be the first out, super fresh. honestly, I can't drink those. It feels like the enamel's being ripped off your teeth. These are wines that need years.
Yeah.
The fact is that the most recent few vintages have been very difficult. They've had a lot of weather phenomena that have actually reduced the yields. Between that and so you have like, it's a confluence of different pressures. You have decreasing yields. You have increasing competition where not even 2 decades ago, you maybe had 10 wineries on the island, and now you're over 20 because it's in vogue to have a property on Santorini. And then, you have all of these other things. 2 or 3 years won't balance it out because you have a few vintages that were very difficult. And Apostoli, if I'm correct, was it 18 or 19 that the yields were practically non-existent because there was an amazing...
Exactly.
Which one was it? Was it 18 or 19 where it like just destroyed everything?
Mm-hmm.
Which
Yes.
one was it? Ποιο χρόνο ήτανε?
Paris, the last year.
Okay, so it was
19.
19. Therefore, you would need a decade of COVID essentially to right the wrongs. Does that make sense? I know that's a horrible way to say it.
Yeah. Definitely the risk
Am I
to
correct
invest.
in my words?
Yes, definitely the risk is very big to producing wine in Santorini because you have all the expenses that the winery have, but it's not sure that you have the quantity that you want. The nature decide for you, not you.
Yeah. This is where Mother Nature is really the boss.
Exactly.
I think so.
Definitely. Yeah.
She doesn't mess around there. She likes you or she doesn't.
Thank you.
Yes. You're welcome.
Do we have any other questions? I know something happened to Alexandra. Marcos, you might have to unmute yourself because I think Alexandra either.
Something is going on with the,
Yeah.
There you are.
Oh, there she goes.
there you go.
So for me, that was the end of my presentation. I of course, if there's any questions from anyone that was listening, and of course, I hope you didn't zone out or get too hammered on everything we drank. I mean, I thought it was really.
That's, I think what happened.
Well, it's Wednesday. Why not? It's COVID season. You might as well enjoy some. Any questions we have? Yeah, this was pretty much where I was ending. And thank you, Apostoli, for being awake and
You're very welcome.
on dad duty at this hour. You're going to have to give Melina
Yes.
a dose of, Santorini, get her to go to bed.
Bye.
Kalinita, thank you.
Kalinita.
Thanks.
Is that still?
Yeah, it's
That's
12:30 at night, and these guys have been up since probably like 4 a.m., so we have to excuse him for going to bed.
It's only 5:30 in the United States.
I know, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, but these guys have, they're in the middle of harvest, and their brains are destroyed right now.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah, it's when it's on, it's on. It's like everyone waits, and then as Petros was alluding to, everything's going to come in at the same time. So you go from being the calm before the storm to being right in the middle of the eye of the hurricane.
Don't mention that. We have a few.
I know, I saw that.
We have a few heading this way.
More on our hands, right?
As long as we stay in Texas.
Oh,
Well, so I just want to chime in and thank everybody for participating. Of course, we'll leave the floor open for any questions, but I just want to thank Michael Madrigal for participating. For those of you who don't know him, believe me, those of us who love wine, this is a big thing to have him participate in today's events. Also having Edouard pop on briefly, another big name in the wine business. But Michael, thank you for participating. I hope that we see you in the next 3 parts. And Andrea and Athene Imports, so let me tell you, you did a fantastic job putting this presentation together.
I hope it was educational. That's what we wanted to
It
make.
was extremely insightful. Extremely insightful. I think we all learned something, and for at least on my part, I can't wait for the next 3 parts. And again, to remind everybody, don't forget on the 31st, we have Start Your Engines, which is going to be another fabulous event. And, it's our opportunity to support all those in the restaurant industry and all related businesses associated. to the restaurant industry, because they do support so many people and families in the New York area. And you know, let's be there for them and try and find solutions for them if we can. But again, everybody, thank you, Alexandra. Thank you for you know, being behind the scenes. Thank you to all the participants, the sponsors. And again, I'll just, does anybody have anything else that they'd like to add? Any final questions?
Just in case. You guys can always find me through, no, if you can find me through the website, the info address,
Excellent.
I catch everything.
Last minute questions?
Anybody?
Alexandra, did anybody type anything in?
No, I don't have
Okay,
anything.
all right. So on that note, I guess we'll close the event. And again, thank you everyone for your participation. I hope you enjoyed the wines and the time together.
Just to give you the last thing, just to preface, you know, I hope everybody enjoyed themselves, and I hope we weren't too wonky with our wine knowledge, you know, the geeky stuff that came out. But you know, if you get Michael and I in a room, all of a sudden you don't even know what could happen. It's we go back a long time. My God,
Oh, yeah.
I don't even want to think about it, because I'm still 25 and you're only 28, so we're good.
Yeah, we're timeless.
That's it. We the anthocyanins go on the sides, darling, and that's how
It helps. It definitely helps.
It does. So our whole thought process behind doing this educational series is really about more so teaching people about the different parts of Greece. So our thought was to do like a voyage through Greece. So we start on the islands. We then go to the Peloponnese, work our way through the middle of the country up to the north. So that's the plan of the syllabus, if you want to call it that, for the education. So I hope it wasn't too much information, but enough to give you a really cool idea of the 3 different parts of the country that we visited and how different the wines are, and to spread the word, because there's so much really cool stuff here that you can have a really good time. And there's so many producers that we could do this for like every day for 365 and we wouldn't even catch everybody.
Andrea, can you just, a little teaser for the next part of the series?
We're going to the birthplace of the Olympics. We're going to the Peloponnese. You know, we're having some fun there.
Okay.
That's
all
all
right.
I'm giving you. We don't know if we're going to be. Are we running track? Are we doing shot put? Or are we throwing a javelin? I don't know yet. I haven't figured that part out. I'm working on it.
All right. All right. Well, again, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Michael, Alexandra, and the whole Heck family. And we'll see you on Wednesday for those of you who will be participating with us.
Monday.
Monday,
31st.
sorry,
Monday the 31st.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
had to got in there. Monday the 31st at 4